Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Market Close Report for Wednesday, the 4th of February. Well, we've kept the winning streak alive now for a second consecutive day. We've got the ASX 200 today lifting by around 70 points, 0.8% higher to 8,927, which means that over the past 2 days, we've basically done almost enough to recoup the hefty losses we had over the prior 4 days. Now, this is not a bad outcome considering that US stocks tumbled last night, mainly because of a pretty big fall in tech stocks, which we'll get to in a second, but also it's a day after, of course, the Reserve Bank decided to raise interest rates here in Australia for the first time since November 2023. That was very widely anticipated. There was more than a 70% chance that would actually be the case, but the decision was a bit more of a hawkish one than some had anticipated, perhaps. And what I mean by this is basically it was a unanimous decision by the 9 board members that decide on what to do with interest rates to raise interest rates. And markets thought that it might have been a little more mixed and there would have been some maybe on the fence and not too keen on it. So markets are doing okay under the circumstances. Now, as far as what we saw across the market today, there were really just a few sectors that rose and fell for different reasons and that deserve a bit of an explanation. So if we look at the sectors today, some of the best performers were in that resource space. So materials and the energy sector, both up more than 3%. Now, we'll start with those two. One of the reasons was a big lift in commodity prices, or at least some of them. Gold was up around 6% in overnight trade, which means it's back above $5,000 per ounce. Even diversified mining stocks did well today as well. Now, reminder, this is after a pretty hefty decline for some of those major mining stocks. So miners slumped by more than 6% on Monday and Friday combined. Gold miners tumbled about 12% over that period. And at the start of the week, energy stocks were down about 2%. Now, one of the things helping mining stocks today was President Trump's decision to set up a $12 billion strategic stockpile of critical minerals. He's coined this Project Vault. Basically, the purpose is to try and reduce dependence on Chinese rare earth and other minerals. And this is for a bunch of commodities like rare earths, like lithium, uranium, and copper. Now, Aussie mining stocks have done well, and that's been partly off the back of that. Now, the big loser today, tech, 9.4% lower. It's the 7th consecutive month of declines now for that sector. Now, there was a really massive global sell-off for software stocks in overnight trade. In fact, software companies in the US had their worst day since April last year, which is when, of course, the concerns around tariffs were at their peak. Now, the catalyst seemed to be a new AI automation tool from Anthropic, which owns Claude. Now, it's adding these new tools for lawyers, which is meant to essentially help automate a number of legal drafting and research tasks, prompting questions to be asked about what this might mean for other jobs. So our tech sector is tiny here in Australia, though. It's the second smallest, which is why our market's still, as far as the ASX 200 and All Ords go, improved. But over in the US, obviously, it is massive. It's about a third of the American market. So some hefty declines from big names over in the US was a reason why they actually had a pretty rough session overnight. Now, if we look at the winners on our market today, one of them was Amcor, which rose about 4.5%, dropped back a little in late trade to around a 3.5% lift. But it reaffirmed its guidance and goals for the year, said that sales over the quarter have basically surged by about 70%. This has had a lot to do with a multi-billion-dollar acquisition of a US company called Berry. It's finding greater synergies with that. Yancoal Australia was up around 9%. Some reports suggesting that China's pipeline of new and refreshed US-based, coal-fire-based power projects, have never been higher. We also had BHP lifting a good 4.5%, hitting a 52-week high. And Lynas, the rare earth minerals stock, was up a good 5% as well. There were losers on the market today, though. Synlait Milk was one. This is a New Zealand-based company, 13.5% lower, having a shocker. Warned that it could post a loss as bad as $82 million just for the half. Now, blame this on manufacturing challenges, and a reminder that just a few years ago it had an exclusive contract for A2 Milk. It used to be this key supplier of its infant formula products. Now, it fell 73% in 2023, 56% in 2024 after losing that. Now, the losers, no surprise here that many of the big tech names, WiseTech, which of course sells a number of different products essentially when it comes to software as a service as far as logistics go, but it fell 11% today. And also accounting software as a service company Xero was down 16%, caught up in that sell-off. And News Corp had one of its worst days in a while, falling about 9.5%. Now, looking forward from here, there will be an update on jobs growth over in the United States for the private sector, but really what's probably going to receive more attention are the number of companies out with earnings later this evening. So we've got stocks like Alphabet, Google's parent company, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, Uber, Ford, Qualcomm, Snap, just to name a few that will be out with earnings tomorrow. We did get an update on international good orders, not including imports and exports, but unlikely to be a big market mover. It rarely is these days, but we do get some results from Beach Energy at the moment. Now, of course, we're in the very early stages of the Aussie profit reporting season, and it's typically in the final couple of weeks of the month where things really start to peak and heat up. Now, as far as currencies go, we've got the Aussie dollar strengthening a bit. It's sitting at 70.3 US. It also strengthened against the yen, but it did finish almost completely flat against the euro at 59.4 US, euro rather. On that note, everyone, have a fantastic evening, and we'll chat to you tomorrow.